Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about 10 things that I hate about retouching. Keeping in mind though that this video is for a bit of fun, it is not super serious, and to be completely realistic, there's so many worse things associated with certain jobs in the world than retouching. These are just a few of my pet peeves that come along with the job, unfortunately, and I thought I'd share them with you guys and see if any of you guys feel the exact same way about some of these things. So I'm gonna get straight into it and label my top 10 things that I hate about retouching. So the first thing that I really don't like about retouching is having to keep my psds organized in terms of layer naming and grouping, and I'm just like not that type of person. I like to think that I'm pretty organized in a lot of different other ways, but when it comes to file naming and things like that, like, have you seen my file names? They literally are the longest file names in the world. Like, it's actually kind of embarrassing because I'm pretty sure my clients sometimes just look at them and go, what is that? I do try to rename them before I send them off to clients, but either way, it's just not something that I like to do, especially when I'm actually working with a file in Photoshop and I have to do the layer renaming and everything. Like, I end up just having layer 1, layer 2, layer 500, and everything just gets absolutely messy. I'm not that type of person to group everything into groups properly a lot of the time, and it's something that I really strive to do for my tutorials because I feel like I should be teaching people potentially the right way to do things in that sense, but I am quite lazy when it comes to that at home, and that is something that I do not enjoy doing. The second thing I hate about retouching is when the healing tools don't want to heal. This is actually a very big pet peeve that I've had for a very long time, and I find that sometimes, you know, the healing tools just don't want to work. They just want to have a break for the day and apparently not do any work, because sometimes when I'm using, especially the patch tool is like, you know, that I find that that's kind of like number one for annoying me in Photoshop at times. Usually I'm using the spot healing brush a lot and the healing brush tool, but the patch tool, man, like some days it just does not want to pick up that texture, and it doesn't want to source the texture properly. Like, it just doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. And, you know, that's just one of my pet peeves about the healing tools. One of my pet peeves. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more there. The third thing I hate about retouching is taking 8 years to find a color grade. Now, I don't know about you guys, but color grading is one of my favorite parts, but it is also one of my least favorite parts because I can feel like I have the best image in the world and I can be happy with everything else, every other element in the photo. Maybe I've even done the skin retouching really well, and then I get to color grading and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So that's one of my really big pet peeves about retouching, is getting to that point and just not knowing where to go with the photo and feeling like you're just ruining it as you go along. And that's kind of like the worst feeling. I feel like when you get to that point and then suddenly you're just not confident. You're not confident about what the coloring is going to look like in the image. And it's especially difficult when you're working on clients' images, because when you don't feel like you know what to do in terms of a color grade there, that gets really awkward. The next thing I don't like about retouching is having to sit in a chair all day. I mean, there's pros to this, but I think there's a lot of cons. And for me, I like to get out of the house quite regularly, and I like to do walks, and I like to hike and do that sort of stuff. And I feel like sometimes when I'm sitting in my chair all day, I just feel so stiff and my back pain gets worse sometimes. I just feel like I already don't have the best posture, and this just kind of like exasperates it a lot of the time. So that's one of my cons about retouching, is that I usually have to sit in a chair all day. Some people might see that as a pro. Sometimes I see that as a pro. The next thing I hate about retouching is hair. I'm not going to say much else on this subject because I'm sure a lot of you feel the exact same way, but hair just, it actually makes me annoyed thinking about it, so I'm just not even going to go further with that. The next thing is when your tablet decides to do weird things. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes my tablet just decides to select random stuff that I didn't select. And a lot of the time this gets really, really frustrating when you are halfway through editing an image, especially a beauty image, and your tablet has just like stuffed up completely and it's just doing weird things across the screen. And then you're like, do I quit out of this? Can I save my image still? Is Photoshop gonna die on me? Is my computer gonna die? You don't really know whose fault it is, and sometimes it's just very frustrating. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I just experience weird things happening to my tablet from time to time, but yeah, it definitely happens. The next thing I hate about retouching is when you realize that the beauty photograph you've been retouching, the model looks like a plastic doll. And that's because I've probably spent too much time retouching it and gone way too overboard. And then I've come back to my computer later on to check into Photoshop and I can see my image is way too over retouched and I've sat there clearly for too long editing. So that happens to me on a weekly basis. This is why I always tell people to come back with fresh eyes and actually make sure that you're happy with the image and how the skin retouching looks, because a lot of the time I've gone too far. The next thing I really don't like about retouching is revisions for clients. And I know that this is such a necessary thing to do in the world of retouching and the fashion industry and photography, but I just, it's not my favorite part. I mean, you've probably spent hours, weeks, months in Photoshop retouching a set of images for a client, and then you have to go back and do more adjustments. Like I don't think it's fun for anyone, but it is a necessary thing because you want to make sure the client is happy with your images in the end. And if there's something that I've missed that they've seen, then obviously the right thing is to go back and to fix up something if it's apparent there that needs to be fixed. But yeah, it's not my favorite part about retouching. Who likes going back into Photoshop after 100 hours and redoing parts of the image? I don't think anyone does. The next thing I hate about retouching, and I don't know if this happens to anyone else or if it's just a me thing again, but when you think you've been doing things for a little while with a certain tool in Photoshop, and then you realize you've got the wrong tool selected and you actually haven't been doing anything for like 10 minutes, that happens to me all the time. I don't know if it's just maybe a thing when it comes to dodging and burning, because it's sometimes quite hard to see what you're applying in the first place with dodging and burning. You have to be looking quite closely and seeing things moving along with it. And sometimes you just kind of like tune out a little bit and you think you're doing things with the right tools, and then you've actually got the healing tool selected or something else, and you've literally been doing nothing to the image for like 20 minutes. That happens to me quite regularly, and it's so frustrating when you realize that you've literally been wasting your time doing nothing. And the last thing that I hate about retouching, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on this one, is when you realize that autosave has been turned off. This is probably my top #1 thing that I hate about retouching. And I think I'm a fairly calm and collected person a lot of the time. Like, I think I can keep myself in check when it comes to, you know, my temper and that when I need to. But there's like only a couple of things in life that really sets me off. And this is just one of those things. Like, when this happens, I turn into that gif where that guy has absolutely lost it and he's like pushing all of his stuff off his desk, and like, that's me. That's me when I realize autosave has been turned off, because sometimes my computer has done this like several times where I've literally gone in and made sure that autosave is on, and then for some reason it turns off. And there's nothing worse when you've been working on a photo for like 5 or 6 hours and then autosave gets turned off and Photoshop dies. It's the worst. It is absolutely enough to make a grown adult cry when that happens. So I don't know about you guys if you agree with me on that one, but that is definitely my #1 in terms of everything that I hate about retouching. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video today. It was just a very random video for me to do where I talk about some of the things that I don't like about retouching. I feel like I talk about a lot of stuff about retouching that's great and that's amazing, but it's not always sunflowers and daisies. So I thought that I would put this out there today and see if you guys felt the same way about anything in particular. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to make sure you see all the videos that I will have coming up in future. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!